In this video, we're going to take a look at the addition of beams and beam systems in Autodesk Revit. Currently, I have a project with some foundation elements and some columns, and I would now like to start to place my beams and beam systems for each floor. I will begin by working on the first floor and copying elements up from there. With that in mind, I'm going to activate my top of slab first floor plan. I currently cannot see the walls, so I am going to set my underlay to top of footing. That will allow me to see all of my footings and my concrete walls. Next, I am going to start by creating some beams. I'm going to go to the Structure tab, then I will select the Beam tool here. Next, I will choose the appropriate shape. In this case, I want to use the wide flange W14 by 30. As I'm drawing these, I'm going to want to make sure chain is turned on. And as you're drawing these beams in, it's important that you're drawing from column to column. For example, it would not be appropriate for me to draw from this column to this column because this beam is going to be interfering with this vertical column. So I'll undo that, and what I want to do instead is to draw from column to column or grid to grid. So once again, I'll use my beam, make sure I've got the correct size here. Then I will just snap to each of these beams. And again, I've got chain turned on, so it's going to keep me in the command and allow me to keep drawing. This will be a little bit time consuming because you will have several beams to draw. When it comes to a curve, I can switch to my start end radius arc to create the curved beam, but I have the same problem here with the interference, so I'm going to escape out of that. I'm going to go to the Modify tab, choose my Split tool, and then I'm going to split the beam somewhere inside where it interferes with this column. And you can see that has now been separated into two different beams there. So I'm going to continue to walk through the process of placing the beams all throughout the building. I'll of course do all the outside ones as necessary, and then I will consult the textbook and make sure I'm creating all the ones shown in there. This arc one is a little more tricky because there are several interferences. So once again, I'm going to escape and go to Modify and Split, and I'll split this one here. Again, you can see the differences. To make it a little more obvious what's going on, I'm really only just seeing the center lines. I'm going to change the view to Fine. That way I can see the beams themselves. And now it's a lot more obvious that it's being broken for those. So here you can see the interference. So once again, I will split. And now we can see the horizontal beam break for the vertical column. And again, I will continue drawing the beams all the way around the outside of the building, and then I will begin adding them to the inside of the building. Now keep in mind when you're adding them to the inside of the building, you don't want to just stop at each grid. You want to just go between columns. So for example, I would draw across here. It's okay to draw across this grid line because there's not a column there. I will continue, again, creating all these beams until my final result looks a little something like this. Again, you can consult your textbook and see all the exact beams that you are to place on this particular project. I'll also switch to my 3D view so I can see how this is looking, and we can see up here on the first floor, I've got my set of beams here. And what I want to do now is to add some beam systems to go inside of each of these bays. So, back on my floor plan, I'm going to go to the Structure tab and select Beam System. I'm going to choose the type of beams that I want. In this case, it's a little bit different. Instead of clicking the drop down here, I've got my beam types here in my options bar. For this particular one, we are going to use the W12 by 26. Then I can specify my spacing rule. Right now it's set to a fixed distance of 6 feet. We're going to change this to a maximum spacing of 6 feet. As you can see, I can also specify a fixed number as well. Next, I'm going to click in here to add the beam systems. Notice that automatic beam system is turned on. And the way this works is the beam system will be created in the bay next to where I'm selecting, and it will be created parallel to the member I'm selecting. So I want my beams to run left and right. So I'm going to make sure I click on a horizontal member to create a horizontal set of beams. Of course, they're all horizontal in the real world, but horizontal in relation to my screen. There are a couple of areas that we are not going to add beam systems to. This is one of them, as well as these two bays down here at the bottom. That is because the elevators and stairs will be placed in these areas. I'll continue to place in each of these bays. Mine are pretty successful. I'm not having any issues placing them with the automatic tool, but if you have any issues, you can switch to the sketch beam system. So let's just pretend, for the sake of argument, this system isn't appearing correctly. Maybe it's overlapping into another view. Instead of the automatic system, I will choose a sketch beam system. Then I can go ahead and either manually draw, or I can pick supports, and I can click the outside area, then finish, and you can see that it's going to create the beams there. Now you can see that they were tagged that time. If I undo to get back in here, then in my properties I can change tag new members to none, and then I will finish. So once again, hopefully the automatic tool works great for you. If not, you do have the ability to sketch those in. So I'll return to the beam system, make sure my properties are the same. I also want to point out there is a tag on placement tool here, so if I wanted to tag them, I certainly could. I don't believe it will allow me to place them in here. Oh, I take that back. I can place a couple of really small ones in there. And then once again, these two bays are going to stay empty. So let's take a look at that in 3D. And now we can see my main girders and my beam systems. The textbook does mention on the curved ones to make sure that they are set as girders. So I'll select one and scroll down, and I can see that its structural usage is set to girder, so I should be fine. Well, now that I've created the first floor, I'm just simply going to copy that up to several other floors. So I'll return to my first floor plan here, and I'm just going to create a selection window. Then I will use my filter tool. And I want to filter this down to just structural beam systems, structural framing, girders, and joists. Then I'll go ahead and click OK to select those members. Next, I'm going to go to my clipboard panel and select copy. Then paste aligned to selected levels. I'm going to copy this from the top of slab, second floor, through the 13th floor. We have slightly different plans for the roof, so we'll come back to that in just a few minutes. I'll go ahead and click OK, and this might take a little bit of time to generate because it is creating lots of beams and beam systems to go on several different floors. In the interest of time, I have jumped forward in my video, so do not be discouraged if yours takes longer than mine appeared to take. Let's look at this in 3D, and we can see that all of those beams and beam systems have been copied up to all the other levels, and of course we have our empty bays for our stairs and our elevators to come later. I want to go ahead and copy items to the roof, but for the roof, we only want the girders themselves. We don't want the beam systems copied. So for that, I'll just go to my next highest level, the 13th floor. I'll change my display to fine. I'm going to window around to select everything in the model. Then I will filter, check none, and I'm going to select only the structural framing girders. Next I will copy. Then I will paste aligned to selected levels and select top of slab 14 roof. Now I'll take a look at it in 3D one more time, and you can see in the upper level I was able to copy all the main girders but not the beam systems, since we'll have some different plans for the roof there that we'll address later. Next I want to add some bracing to some of these bays going up along the building. I'm going to return to my top of slab first floor. And I'm going to create a framing elevation up here in between B and C. So I'll move to my View tab. I'll select my elevation drop down and select Framing Elevation. Then I will just simply point to the grid in between B and C. That's going to create a new little view here called Elevation 1A. I am going to locate that and rename it here in the project browser. We're going to call this West Bracing. And I'll go ahead and activate that view. I can see the view goes all the way to the top, which is what I want. I can't quite see the columns, so I'm going to expand my cropping region to the side each direction. Currently only getting the stick model, so I'm going to change my view to fine so that I can see the members themselves. I also have my level labels overlapping my model a little bit, so I'm going to select one of these levels and then select the little dot here to drag all of the labels off of the model. Then I'm going to come down here in between the ground floor and the first floor, and I'm going to draw some bracing. I'm going to move to the Structure tab and select the Brace tool. Next, I will choose the type of member that I want to use. So I want to use some square tubing, 6 by 6 by 1/2 inch. Next, I'll just simply come in here and snap to the bottom of the column. Then I'm looking for the midpoint of this beam coming across the top. As you can see, the brace is trimmed to fit inside there. I'll go ahead and draw the one on the opposite side as well. Once again, going from the intersection at the bottom to the midpoint of this horizontal brace. And that will create my bracing for the first floor. Next, I'll go ahead and copy those up to the levels above. So I'll select them both and select copy in my clipboard. Then paste aligned to selected levels. I'm going to copy these from the first floor through the 13th floor. So I'll hold Shift and select all those, then click OK. And I will see those copied all the way up my building. Now when I get to the top, there's actually a different amount of space between the 13th floor and the roof. So I'll simply make sure that I have both of these members selected, then I can click and drag the dot straight up until it intersects the beam up above. And I can see that the bracing adjusted. I'll take a look at my 3D view one more time, and we can see that bracing running up that side of the building there. Of course, we can continue doing that to other bays, but we're going to stop there for the sake of this exercise. That concludes this look at placing beams and beam systems in Autodesk Revit.